Hi and Assalamualaikum. So here are all the members that will discuss regarding this topic, and I, Amira Natasha, would like to start this discussion with the introduction. As for the introduction, let me introduce to you the relation between wages in economic. Wages and salaries are the remuneration paid or payable to employees for work performed on behalf of an employer or services provided. Companies and governments benefit from paying fair wages. Research suggests that raising the minimum wage can reallocate workers to more productive establishments. It can address poverty and social inequality and also stimulate economic dynamism. In macroeconomics, wage growth is one of the main indications to measure economic growth for a long term, since it reflects the consumer's purchasing power in the economy as well as the level of living standards. In Malaysia, the concept of minimum wage was introduced by the Wages Councils Act 1947, which was applicable to several sectors. Next, wages are determined by the intersection of demand and supply. As each firm is a price taker, it faces a horizontal supply curve for a labor at the market wage. There are few factors that affect the minimum wage. The first one is ability to pay. It depends on the ability of an industry to pay influence wage rates to be paid. A profitable enterprise may pay more to the workers and attract good workers to work. The second one is cost of living. In many industries, wages are linked to enterprise cost of living, which ensures a fair wages to workers. The workers will accept a wage which may ensure them a minimum standard of living. And the last one is productivity. Productivity is the contribution of workers in increasing the output. Workers may be offered additional bonus if productivity increases beyond a certain level.
Hi, I am Siti Aisha binti Kamarudin, metric number 291206, and I'll speak on the issues or topic of discussions going around wages in Malaysia. There are three hot topics circulating around wages or salaries in Malaysia. People are discussing about underpayment, the low wage growth or stagnant growth of salaries, as well as the minimum wage set by the government. When it comes to underpayment and low wage growth, according to Bank Negara Malaysia (BNM), Malaysians are underpaid as compared to the productivity level produced, and this has been going around for decades, where Malaysian employees were paid the least for the same level of production compared to their regional peers in Singapore and South Korea. And according to the Salaries and Wages Statistics by Department of Statistics Malaysia, the median salary for Malaysians in 2021 was just 2,250 ringgit. However, this is actually a result of increment, as the average monthly salaries and wages received by employees in Malaysia increased by 3.5% in 2021 compared to 2020. But putting into consideration of today's cost of living, is this increment actually enough? Moving on, next, let's talk about Malaysia's and other countries' minimum wage. Across the world, minimum wage systems are diverse and many approaches are possible depends on the respective country's needs and choice. In the UK, most if not all workers are entitled to be paid at least national minimum wage, or if you are 23 or over, it's a national living wage. For example, from 1st of April 2023, the national living wage for those aged 23 and over to increase from £9.5 to £10.42 an hour, and the national minimum wage for those aged 21 to 22 will change from £9.18 to £10.18. The highest minimum wage in the world is offered by Australia. As of July 1st, 2022, the minimum wage in Australia is $21.38 Australian dollars an hour. Converted into pounds, this would be around £11.91. Australia's strong currency gives a high conversion rate against the euro or pound, attracting seasonal workers who make more money per hour than they would in the UK or European countries such as Spain. Furthermore, the good news for Malaysians is that the government increased the national monthly minimum wage from May 1st, 2022 by 35%, from 1,200 ringgit to 1,500 ringgit. This was the long-awaited increment that we have been waiting for to lessen the financial burden. And as for the latest update, the government postponed the implementation of the 1,500 minimum wage for companies employing less than 5 workers. But it will soon come into effect again starting July 1st, said our Human Resources Minister.
I'm Alia Maisara, number 29135 represent to you how Malaysia country solve the problems of minimum wages. It is by increasing the amount of minimum wages.
The new minimum wage of 1,500 ringgit will come into effect on May 1st, Prime Minister Ismail Sabri Yaakob has announced. He said the increase from the current minimum wage of 1,200 ringgit will only involve companies in the private sector, which have 5 employees or more. He said the cost of living is rising and this is putting pressure on the B40 group.
Saya mendengar perbahasan yang dibawa oleh para perwakilan dan keluhan rakyat di luar sana. Justru hari ini saya ingin mengumumkan di Dewan ini bahawa kerajaan telah meluluskan pelaksanaan gaji minima sebanyak RM1,500. Pembayaran gaji minima ini akan bermula pada 1 bulan Mei 2022.
The minimum wage was last increased in February 2020 from 1,100 ringgit to 1,200 ringgit per month.
After watching the video, we can conclude that raising minimum wages can give us pros and cons. Firstly, I will explain about the pros of raising minimum wages. First and foremost, it will improve employee performance. Raising the minimum wages will make the employees satisfied and happy to do their job. This will lead to an improvement of employee performance during working. Next is financial support for low-income families. Increasing minimum wages can help low-income families financially at the same time reduce poverty. Also minimize the socio-economic imbalance between B40 and M40. Last but not least, the pros is employee would stay loyal. Employee will stay working at the company for a long period because instead of their find a new job, it will be better for them to stay. It's because the wages increase and it also help the company to reduce the hiring costs. Next, about cons of raising minimum wages. First and foremost is higher price of goods and services. Raising wages rate will also affect the cost of living employees, especially for goods and service, as it may be the downturn to economy if the goods and service not get a profitable profits. Hence, when the wages increase, the goods and service price will also increase. Secondly, it's about company may downsize. Increased wages rates may be difficult rule to follow by small businesses because it's made for a small company. Also may go out of business to their inability to pay high salaries to their employees. We become to the end. That's all for cons and pros for raising a minimum wages.
Apakah keutamaan saya sekarang ialah kos sara hidup. Ya, apakah
Now, I would like to continue to talk about the effects on increasing the minimum wages in Malaysia, especially in terms of cost of living. As how it has been confessed by our Prime Minister, Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim, he told that their main concern nowadays are about the cost of living. Cost of living is the sum of money required in a specific location and time frame to meet the necessities and including housing, food, taxes and also healthcare. It is important for people to be aware regarding the cost of living in certain areas because cost of living is frequently employed to differentiate the cost of living in variety of cities and places. Cost of living can play big role to someone as they are guidelines for people to budget their expenses in order to live in the city. One of the effects of increasing minimum wages in terms of cost of living is it can reduces the poverty. In Malaysia, we have different levels of family income which are B40, M40 and also T20. B40, which a family has less than 4,850 ringgit of monthly income. M40, which gain income in between of 4,850 ringgit and 10,959 ringgit. And the last one is T20, which gets over 10,960 ringgit of monthly income. If the government increases the minimum wages in Malaysia, it has automatically reduces the poverty in Malaysia, which means that people can buy their necessities without having thoughts to cut some expenses. people tend to satisfy their needs and necessities since the income that they have gained has increased, and also they can manage to buy those important stuffs. Next, higher salary equals to higher standard of living. When the government upsized the amount of minimum wages in Malaysia, people tend to have a little luxury life compared to their past. First of all, in terms of the daily expenses. For example, children and students who brings pocket money of 5 ringgit per day can get an amount of maybe around 10 ringgit per day if their parents get much salary, which means that they can buy more delicious foods, they do not have to starve themselves, and also can increase their savings per day. This means that it may help for the children's current living and also for their future. Next, when people get much salary than the current one, they can get a better taste of meals every day. Rather than eating eggs and soy sauces, they can eat fried chicken, meats or fishes. Other than that, people with low standard of cars can improve their comfortability of living by getting new cars, higher monthly income, new amount of expenses, higher commitment, but still not to ignore the needs of getting comfortable life. They can advance their cars from a 4-seated seats to 6-seated to get a better life, to get the more comfortable life. That is why increasing the minimum wages should be considered by the government. However, it is undeniable that increasing minimum wages can cause to wage push inflation. Wage push inflation is a condition where a general increase in prices for products or services as a result of a wage growth. The future value of existing currency is diminished by the inflation itself. As to give the flow of how wage push inflation can happen, let's look at the right side of the slideshows. When the government increases the minimum wages, people tend to gain higher salary, which results in them to meet the basic needs and desires, which is good. But when most people are able to get the products and services, there might be an increase in the demand. When we talk about the resources, we know that it is limited. Higher demand will cause a problem in terms of its resources. If this situation happens, manufacturers tend to increase the prices of their products and services, which again lead to an inflation. All in all, we believe that each problem or issue stated by the people has their own solutions. Either it can be settled down in any minute, or maybe it takes time for the problems to cool down. The authorities, or maybe the government, better take further actions to ensure that people can live their life without having any major issue. Some people be suffering in poverty just because of the insufficient wages given. Let's stop this.